Hello and welcome to WHAP News. I'm Julie Czerniakowski.
And I'm Chesko. Today we're here to bring you this year's 1918-1919 Years in Review update.
Tonight's local Boston news topics include reports on the World Series, discussion of the American influenza epidemic with a guest speaker later on, and information on the Boston police strike.
In terms of the World Series, I'm sure everyone in Boston is celebrating the Red Sox big win, finishing the sixth game of the series against the Cubs with a final winning score of 2-1. And we'll have more on that topic later in our sports section.
Next, our reports say that this influenza epidemic has hit Boston hard after causes broke out at the receiving ship on August 28th. It is said to spread to other nearby naval installations and shipyards. Boston citizens are warned to remain at home if at all possible, and again, we will have more details on this later with our guest speaker. But for now, our charts say that over the past years, as you can see, this is 1940s, 1918, 1919, the amount of deaths has increased from the influenza. The black is the influenza, and the orange is the other natural deaths that have occurred. So as you can see, in 1918, 1919, it has clearly increased.
Finally, on our local news, Boston police ranks and files went on strike September 9th in order to receive recognition for their trade union and improvements in wages and work conditions. As attempts at reconciliation between the commissioner and police officers, especially on Boston's mayor, Andrew James Peters, failed, Boston experiences several nights of lawlessness. However, the problem is being solved as we speak. Thank you. And hesitant military leaders limited women's roles. But this country needed their skills to pursue the war effort and to move male soldiers out of the office space and into the battlefield. By war's end, American military women had served stateside and overseas on the eastern and western war fronts. World War I has marked a new era in women's movement, from the home and into the public atmosphere. Their call to service by the military establishment was hesitant, limited, and unequal in treatment and benefits, yet they went to war anyway. As the peace process unfolded, they were removed from the wartime work area, and many of them remained in the public realm, taking on new roles in the workplace and seeking higher education. Others resumed traditional places in the home.
Next on WHAP News, we have Dr. John S. Hitchcock, head of the Communicable Disease section of the Massachusetts State Department of Health, to speak with us about the American influenza epidemic.
Yes, welcome, Dr. Hitchcock. What can you tell us about this new and deadly disease?
First, I'd like to say that unless precautions are taken, the disease in all probability will spread to the civilian population of the city. As for the origins, influenza had broken out in the receiving ship on August 28th, and within a week there were over 24 cases among sailors stationed there. Soon the disease spread to other nearby naval installations and shipyards, and by mid-September it had infected nearly 2,000 of the 21,000 sailors stationed in the Boston area.
What has been done to prevent this disease from spreading?
Military officials did their best to stem the rising tide of cases and to protect the rest of the sailors and military personnel in the Boston area, as well as civilians. The approximately 2,500 non-ill sailors at Commonwealth Pier were relocated to tent barracks at the muster field in Framingham as means of removing them from harm's way. The 200 men enlisted in the Naval Aviation Service, expected to board the train for the training station in Charleston Naval Yard in South Carolina, were kept in place as to not transmit influenza to the South. It was a futile attempt, but there was little else naval officers could do. Boston was surrounded on all sides.
Thank you, Doctor. And what advice do you have for the people of Boston in terms of avoiding catching this fatal illness?
Actually, we've made some new discoveries in the regards of the disease. I haven't told anyone about this yet, but I believe I've found a cure. In simple...
Are you okay, Doctor?
In
Doctor.
simple terms...
Doctor. Dr. Hitchcock, are you okay? Dr. Hitchcock! Oh my god. Oh my god.
And now let's cut to a commercial break.
Chew Wrigley's gum. It's delicious. Even the doughboys chew it.
Available in Juicy Fruit, Big Red, and Double Mint. Buy yours today and be like a doughboy.
Coming back from that commercial break, we find it unfortunate to inform you that Dr. Hitchcock has succumbed to the effects of the influenza and has passed away. But moving right along to international news, most of the events this evening have occurred in the Russian and German area. Therefore, Russian revolutionaries execute former Tsar and his family. Also, the Russian Civil War breaks out between the Reds, the Bolsheviks, and Whites, the anti-Bolsheviks. So far, events have occurred in the Reds' favor. And the Allied troops, including Britain, France, and the United States, intervene in this Russian Revolution and Civil War. German hostiles cease attack on Western Front, but the Japanese still hold a city in Russia. As discussed earlier, worldwide Spanish influenza epidemic strikes. Nearly 2 million are dead, and in the U.S. alone, 500,000 have perished. Thank you. That's all we have for international. Next, we're going to list off this year's Did You Know?
In 1918, the capital of Russia, Petrograd, was moved to Moscow.
In Cadell, Kansas, the town was struck by a tornado for the third consecutive year on the same day of May 20th.
The Toronto Arenas won the Stanley Cup in hockey.
In horse racing, the Exterminator won the Kentucky Derby.
The movie Tarzan, the one of the Tarzan of the Apes, was released on January 27th.
In 1919, the Cincinnati Reds won the World Series.
Do you want me to?
Bill Johnson won the United States Open men's singles tournament.
In Boston, Massachusetts, there was a deadly tidal wave that was made of molasses.
Woodrow Wilson, our president, won the Nobel Peace Prize.
And Sir Barton won the United States Triple Crown of horse racing and was the first to win all 3 races. Next, for today's odd news section, we have reports that New York's worst subway accident has occurred. It has killed 92 people and injured 100. The train supposedly jumped the track in Brooklyn at 30 miles per hour. That's 5 times the speed limit.
In today's sports section, this year's World Series was played between the Boston Red Sox, who had a record of 75 wins and 51 losses, and the Chicago Cubs, who had 84 wins and 45 losses. In a 6-game series, the highly favored Cubs went down 4-2, and there is some questioning if they threw the game. But we'll have to wait for more questioning to find out. In the series, though, several guys had put up some great numbers and stats. Starting off with the Boston Red Sox, Wally Schnagg had a great batting average at 444. Babe Ruth batted at only 200 but had 2 RBIs and a triple. Stuffy McInnes had a batting average of 250 with 5 hits and 1 RBI to add to the team. For the Chicago Cubs, Charlie Pick batted at 389 with 7 hits and 2 runs scored by himself. Lefty Tyler batted 200 with 2 RBIs. Charlie Deal batted .176 with 3 hits. Both teams had some outstanding pitching to add to the game, but one from each team really shined out during this series. For Boston, it was all about Carl Mays. He had an ERA of 1 with 2 wins. Then, for the Chicago Cubs, Hippo Vaughn with an ERA of 1 and 1 win, but did have 2 losses in this series. Thank you for joining us today on WHAP News. I'm Julie Czerniakowski.
And I'm Mackenzie Chesko, signing off on today's Years in Review news update.